Hi, welcome to vBrownbag. My name is Jody Lent. I work for a little company called Ahead. We are a data center and cloud consulting firm in Chicago, and I'm here to talk to you about building a VRO plugin when you have a REST API that you want to use. So quite often, we'll use some product for one of our clients, and the product has no command line. It has just this REST API, and I really wish I could shove it into VRO. Well, that's what we're going to do. We're going to use VMware's own application services. So I'm going to go over app services, a little bit about how its REST API works, how we made a VRO plugin for it for one of our customers, and then the gotchas that you'll run into when you do that. One thing I'm not going to do is explain how REST works, how to script, apt, any of that stuff, but I'm happy to explain it if you want to hit me up on Twitter at the end. So when doing a deployment, very, very often in vRealize, you're using custom properties. You're using them for storage placement, for IPAM, for backup, for sometimes determining what data center a machine is going to land in, and of course for host names. Love the guys over at DH. So you have these big scripts that say, hey, I'm going to assign all of these custom properties. But when you try and do it in apt, if you deploy by hand, you get this big deployment profile, and there's this tiny little button that you click to add those custom properties. Well, I wanted to present, with the Advanced Service Designer, I wanted to present a workflow that would request something on behalf of a user and do some custom logic before it injected these custom properties. So I didn't want to just publish this right here to the service catalog, which means talking to the REST API. So App Services has a REST API like most VMware products, but when you try and deploy with it, it turns out you can only modify 4 properties. You can modify the host name, you can modify the node count, so hey, I want to have 4 web servers or 1 web server, and you can modify your compute resources. Unfortunately, there are no custom properties, and if you try and inject them, when you do one of these deployments, you can create a JSON and you can specify these other keys, it will kick it back and reject you. So we had to write this absolute monster here, which has since grown in the telling. But the basic idea is when you deploy from app services by hand, under the hood, what that little button there does is creates a temporary deployment profile, adds the custom properties that you give it, and then clones off of that. So we needed to be able to do the same process via VRO. So if you see here, we've got a few scriptable tasks where we're creating the custom properties, we're logging them, and then what we're going to do is we're going to, we're going to get the deployment profile we want to clone off. We're going to inject into its spine the JSONs that we want for our new custom properties. We're going to actually clone off of that new deployment profile. And then in the bottom right there, we've got a little waiting where we're checking the deployment. If it's done, we continue. If it's not, we wait for another 2 minutes. And then when it succeeds, if it succeeds, we rip down the deployment profile because we don't need the temp profile anymore. We're just going to destroy it, get the VM object, and spit it out. If it fails, we leave that thing lying around so that you can go in and look at what you did and see if there's a custom property that's malconfigured. So this is how it works. The JSON is actually a big, big single JavaScript object, and that's all a deployment profile is under the hood. So if you get one, you can then go in and completely whack nodes, change other nodes, and that's what we're doing. We are injecting, I really want this laser to work, but I can't see it. We're injecting right about 2/3 of the way down there where it says extra config map equals custom property array JSON. That's what we're doing is we're taking the JSON of an existing deployment profile, shoving in new custom properties, and then we're going to create a new deployment profile named auto temp timestamp and clone off that guy. You can also use this same method to update any of the properties in your apt blueprints. So if you deployed a Puppet class and it has 3 in parameters, we're doing that here. If you look at the comments up at the top, you can actually see that one of those is Puppet Oracle blah blah. So we're actually configuring an Oracle install the same way. You can do this for disk sizing. You can have dynamic resizing of your CPU memory. You name it based on those custom properties. If you can write it, you can shove it in there. So this leads to a lot of sub-workflows. Now, each of these, this one here happens to be getting that deployment profile. So I'm getting an application. I'm getting the ID from a big JSON list of applications. I am then parsing all that out, and I'm making REST calls here in these scripts. Well, what I do is I take those scripts, I put them into workflows, I try and make them as compact as possible. One script workflow if you can get away with it. And then we put them in a folder, we package it up, maybe get real crazy and use actions and version them. And then you could add REST ops to your REST hosts. And I'm going to be out of time here, but this is how the big boys do it. This screenshot here is what the NSX plugin looks like. If you go crack open any one of those workflows in the NSX plugin, all of them are just API calls under the hood using the NSX REST API. So thank you all for listening. You can contact me at Jody Lent on Twitter or grab me here in MeetSpace if you don't like TweetSpace. Thanks for your time, guys.